Are we? Okay. So hello, everybody. It's wonderful to see you. And I will introduce Peter in a moment. My name, for those of you who are new here, is Nadjeschda Taranczewski, short form for Nadjeschda. I'm the founder of ConsciousU, and we deliver and design scalable coaching programs online. And one of them is the program that I wrote with Peter Koenig about money called CU Money, which is starting again soon. This is my little trailer here for the upcoming program. I hope you will join us. But now enough about this. It's such a pleasure, Peter, to introduce you again to this group. Most of you know Peter by now. He's the founder of the Peter Koenig systems, which includes money work and source work. And hello, Peter.
Hello, Nadia. Hello, everybody. And nice to see so many familiar faces here. And I think some new ones as well. Hello, everybody.
Fantastic. So, yeah, Peter, I'm wondering if we today, in some ways, feels to me like quite a special Ask Me Anything, because it follows after the suicide of a very dear friend of ours who was, I think, nearly at every Ask Me Anything that I can remember. Her name was Vera Hofmann. Many of you knew her, at least have seen her. And for us, that has been quite a ripple in this community to deal with Vera's decision, to find compassion, love, deal with our grief. And Peter, I wondered if you have a few thoughts on the connection between the work that you do and death, actually, and love.
Yes. And hello, you. I'm so glad that you're here with us today too. Yes, my thoughts on Vera taking her life have been very deep and very long, and very active, actually, in the sense of the new project that I've been helping to initiate on the Summit of Summits in Japan. And the phrase that came out of the events, which I have been integrating and actually using, is the phrase, the pain of inadequacy, the pain of feeling that we are not enough, and I am not enough, and I'm not doing enough. And I feel this is so relevant to where we are in the world at the moment, if we look at what is happening. And I've been sharing that in the emails I've been sending out. Just looking at the daily news. A few days ago, I'm in Switzerland, for those that don't know. The news in Switzerland reported that half of the world's population don't have clean drinking water. At the same time, there are 140 million refugees, and the UN has just reported that the worst humanity disaster at the moment, not Gaza, it's not Ukraine, it's Sudan. And there are 8 million refugees in Sudan living in terrible conditions. And what has struck me so strongly, particularly in order to honor Vera and her final act, which was, I believe, partly in the face of feeling inadequate in relation to, at least in part, the pain of the world and her world, but to honor her final act and the courage it took to take that final act. I've been sharing about that actually what I feel we need to do is not to try to anesthetize ourselves from this pain, to avoid the pain and deny the pain, but actually to feel it and to come from it and to act from it. And in order to create the world that we want to see, and particularly to end the brutality that we're seeing right now, which is just a mirror of the brutality that we, humanity, have been exercising historically, probably for aeons, but also recently, not just the Second World War, the First World War. I've been looking, strangely enough, I had a visitor just 2 nights ago from China, from Nanking. And most of you, or many of you know, I'm going to Japan with the Summit of Summits. And of course, the focus there is on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But maybe most people don't know, and I didn't know, when I looked up, is it called Nanking or Nanjing? And I looked at Wikipedia. In 1938, the Japanese military committed terrible atrocities in this town. And, you know, I'm not looking to shame us or to shame anybody, but this is within our system at the moment still, you see. It's still happening in Africa. It's still happening in our world. And that's why I feel so strongly about our project of the Summit of Summits, to really research together, how do we respond in a way, taking inspiration from Vera Yuke, really taking inspiration from her and what her final act represented, to see how we can move forward and de-escalate hostilities and reverse the trend of increasing military spending now, which is just in the name of security, but it's a joke. So that's where I am, Nadia, myself, today in the terms of this introduction. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for sharing that, Peter. Yeah, I mean, I feel it's been quite a seismic event in our communities, and actually it highlighted again for me the necessity for community, and also that, you know, people will still make their choices in life, whether or not they have community. So with and without community, we are in some place of ourselves deeply alone and have to find our own solutions to the challenges that you just described. Now, before...
And it calls, if I can just add, it calls for leadership now.
Yes.
It really calls for strong leadership. We don't have strong leadership in the world, and people are, you know, doing all sorts of stuff which sort of looks good, but I would call a lot of it is in the name, these kind of actions are in the name of anesthetics, to numb ourselves to what's really going on, rather than looking at what's going on and feeling what's going on. And that's where we really do need strong leadership now.
And Peter, as to your prompt with the strong leadership, I just got off a call with a coaching client with whom, as so often, I ended up doing reclamation work. And the reclamation we started out with was, I'm not good enough. And he had a very, very strong, a very strong reaction to sort of enter that space, right? You know, as for all of us, it's a very old room, it's very deep. But then what began to soften it for him is that I said, you know, think of a world that we live in right now that is run by mainly white men who all feel they're not good enough. And because they cannot enter that space within themselves, that's what they create, right? It's the pain of not feeling, it's the pain of not being able to hold that space within ourselves. And so I think your work now is more than ever needed to create the leadership that we need at this moment in time. So with that being said, I would love to give all of you a moment of checking in with 1 or 2 other people, like literally 8 minutes, not going to be long, to just share what resonated from what you just heard, and where would you like to take this conversation? What are the questions that you have? What are the responses that you have? And as always, anything in this space is welcome. So I'm going to send you off for 8 minutes and then meet you back here in a moment. Bye. And I'll pause it.
Hi.
Hey, hello, hello. It's good to see you back here. All right, so you know the drill, the floor is open. You can raise your hand either electronically, which is easiest for me because it's easier for me to see that, or just unmute yourselves. What is present in you right now, I wonder? And it doesn't have to be a question, it can also be a comment, something that came up in your conversation just now. Where are you at? Okay, unmute yourselves, little.
Well, I just remember Peter's comments on democracy and the lack of democracy. He also commented on that regarding Switzerland, which seems to be one of the better democracies, so to say, in the world. And even there, he says, well, there's a lack of democracy and no revolution announced, but the idea really that grassroots democracy should be created again to and people speaking up. And I just opened the book of Gorbachev. I believe his last book, there he also commented and said, what I learned from the 1989 events were that we really have to listen to people. And if we really would listen to people, we wouldn't probably have no war. That's what, and I enjoyed the conversation with Simon, I believe was his name.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Little. Peter, any thoughts that come up in response to Little?
Just to say that, you know, Switzerland is considered the most advanced democracy in terms of people able to take votes. And in that sense, it is more advanced than other nations. But of course, there's a long way to go still in terms of the philosophy, the underlying philosophy, which is meant by democracy. Thank you, Reto. Yeah.
What else is present in you? What is coming up?
And maybe just to add, that actually what we're looking to create, as you mentioned this, Reto, what we're looking to create with our Summit of Summits project, it's not really just about a gathering in Japan. That's just an inaugural event. The project is a long-term event, a long-term project, and that is to create a civil society movement. And what I'm now phrasing, it should be a Taylor Swift movement plus. That's what we're looking to create here. In other words, we want to use everything that's out there, all the technologies, you know, Web3, social media, artificial intelligence, whatever's out there must be used to harness a movement, really, of ordinary people who want peace and prosperity and to have their voice come loud. That's really the intention. And you know, in a certain way, what happened in England is already a tiny little start, where the right wing were so much in opposition and creating all these demonstrations. And then like an anti-right-wing peaceful demonstration came out against, to sort of, not really so much against this, but just to stand for what is common sense, I would say. And that's really what we're looking to bring into movement here, the common sense of ordinary people in a large way. Because I think that's what will shift, that's what will shift the needle in terms of government and business eventually. But it's a long-term project, it's a long-term movement that is required. So that's just a few additional words of related to the very tiny start that we will be making in Japan.
And I was, just thinking the opening song that I played was by a Berlin-based choir called A Song for You. And I saw them yesterday live. They were really quite amazing with 50 people on stage, most of them people of color, and it was really incredible. And as we were leaving the venue, Olga, my wife, was saying, I wish that people would treat democracy like this choir. You often feel like you're disempowered, like it doesn't make a difference. But in a choir, even if you're not a soloist, every voice counts. And I know that this tool of democracy is certainly imperfect, the way we've set it up in most countries, but it's not an impossible tool. And I know that a lot of the ailment that we have in Germany comes from people feeling disempowered and then choosing to not even go and vote anymore. And that's what just came up for me as well. That part of this movement is understanding the power of your individual voice in a big choir. Okay, so let's see what else is here. I'm going to take the liberty to just.
I'm sorry, Nadia, and to just intervene and add what the choir is, how powerful it is. And being in the midst of a choir and be a singer, sense this power is enormous. It's enormous. It's a wonderful description, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Thank you, Reto. Yes, I think you're right. Even as a non-singer, I could feel that power yesterday, and it is just incredible to be present to that. And and if we can find our voice in it, even more so. Mary, you had your hand up.
Hi everyone. This is Mary. I'm from New York City and happy to be here. And also thank you for placing me with my grad school professor who I lost touch with. And I'm so incredibly delighted to see you here. I can't even tell you. So serendipity. And one of the things that I was sharing with him is, I feel like I live in what is considered like a world power of democracy. And it's interesting to grapple with the perception or the desire versus sometimes the reality. So I had the privilege of traveling to Finland last week. And I spent time in a country and in a place where I was absolutely blown away with the investment in the architecture and some of the structures that really enable gathering and sustainability. And it was palpable. Like, even if I don't know that much about it or how the government works there or the democracy works, I left absolutely inspired and blown away. And so it left me with the question for myself that I wanted to share with all of you of like, what is my role? Like, how do I bring it down to what I can do? And then like, what are these systemic things that are equally important, but kind of understanding the balance between the big picture and the everyday, and like how I can participate in that. So what you're doing, Peter, in Japan, that sounds super cool. That would be great to do that. But I also like feel truly honored and inspired to be able to see something better than what I have, having traveled. And been with you, to sort of say, like, to balance those things. So maybe others grapple with that as well, but I wanted to share that as a reaction, Nadia,
Thank you.
and everyone. Yeah.
And firstly, I was so delighted about the reconnection to you, because the funny thing is I put the two of you together because I had this strong feeling that you should be in a room together, but of course I have no idea why. So there you go.
Intuition. Yeah.
Peter, any thoughts you have? Ayub, you have your hand up, please. Ayub, you're
Yes,
muted.
yes, so I need to find this unmute thing all the time. Takes time. Probably my age and my emotions. Peter, and this is also, Deborah, maybe addressed to you. You mentioned the leadership and the need for leadership, strong leadership, or whatever we want to call it. And I wonder if either one of you, maybe you two, could say something about that, because I'm, well, you know of my sadness at this moment, but I mean, one of the leaders that I thought was going to be there, who I believed as a leader of the future, I called her my hope for that perspective, decided that it was so heavy that she took her own life. So I'm really puzzled what and where we will find this strong leader that is so much needed. Because Peter, I mean, close to your age, we will not live forever, which is a great gift, I think, of our life's invention. So that is good. But then there is this need, and so I'm. This is where I'm searching / struggling. And I talk about leadership, and I think I have all these great ideas and all these great notions, but then there is this extreme sadness that when I discovered one, that she decides to leave this world and help us from the other side. I do believe that as well.
I'm going to put Deborah on as well, if that's okay, because you mentioned her.
Yeah. I'm highly respectful of what she's doing and admire her, not only of her, but of the work that she does around leadership. So that's why I thought of her.
Deborah, do you want to go first?
Well, bless you, Joep. And my heart is with you through all of this phase and the waves of grief. And I do believe we need to take time and allow grief to overwhelm us whenever it needs to, and just be with us. And there will be some form of healing that will happen for all of us through this. And the respect we give to grief, because I don't think we give enough attention to grief generally in the world. So that just came to me. And I will link it to the comment, Nadia, that you made of the person you were coaching. If there are leaders who don't feel they're good enough and they can't speak to that, it's also part of not being able to access that original grief, which you've said comes from when we first get catapulted out of the birth canal. And go, what the hell has just happened to me? Like my original birth trauma. Do we ever really give access to that original form of grief of, wow, it was really beautiful in there and now I'm here, and excuse me, all of that trauma. Do we as true parents look at how we nurture that element of trauma in ourselves? So I feel there's something in the gift that dear Vera has given us to invite us in community to deeply access what is our original trauma that stops us in one form or another, and that can be now I will just go to a belief that systems are bigger than individuals. And we need to be addressing systems, which is what I sense you're wanting to do, Peter, with the Summit of Summits as the beginning point of this. We have to acknowledge the systems that influence us, but then we need to find leaders who can influence systems. And I think that's the part where community really comes in, to support us, to be able to support those leaders, to step up, to be able to address systems that are still operating from unhealed trauma in one form or another. And I'll just share a brief little story. Nadia, I think you know this because of posts that were made, but you and I didn't discuss it in our last phone call. I was in Germany, central Germany, for a Thomas Hübl event of 1 week, Healing Collective and Ancestral Trauma. 550 of us. And he mentioned that we would be, his intention was we would become community, a healing community by the end of the week. And the moment he walked off the stage, he taught us, while during the week, he taught us to do a humming at the end of each day, and a humming that turned into a toning. And he walked off the stage and hardly said goodbye. And I have no idea who started this, but the whole group of 550 people started to hum. And the humming then evolved into from a to an ah to a toning. And it was just magical. No conductor, just the group in complete unison of the harmony that was being created from this 1 week together. I have goosebumps talking about it right now. It was like we were the swallows of murmuration. And it was as if we were one voice, feeling one healing, even though, as Thomas had mentioned, in the group were descendants of perpetrators and descendants of victims. And everybody came together in this extraordinary healing. And that's my wish for the world, that we will be creating communities of that kind that move beyond the stultifying element of money, where it's full of the projections, as you've declared to us, Peter, and we move into a flow and a new money system somehow that is back to where you'd love it to be able to be. Thomas Hübl, dear Monica, Thomas Hübl, I'll write it down.
Peter, any thoughts that come up for you?
I don't think I've got much to add to this. You know, the source of the actual project, I'm as you know, Nadia, I'm sourcing the anchoring of the project in Japan with the event. But the source of the project is actually Alexander, and long term. And his energy is around exactly what you're talking about, Debbie. It's about communion that he's talking about, which is actually what you're kind of referencing with this toning. It's really, ultimately at a spiritual level, it's about communion, us communing in a one communion. And of course, you know, there's a you know, I refer to the paradox of this, because in order to create this communion, you have to be in your full individuality as well. It's the paradox, which you can't explain. But this is where the work is involved. Because if you just project on external leadership as being the result, as being, you know, we come back to this question of leadership. But if you just project that somebody else is going to do it for you, that's not going to be the solution. At the same time, it does need leadership. And this is beyond a mental understanding. When I say we need leaders, a leader or leaders, I mean, I feel I'm taking leadership right now with the Summit of Summits. And it came to me because I don't see anybody else calling for what I am calling right now. In the same way that I started with the money work, in the same way that I started with the source work. There was nobody else out there that I saw that was actually doing it. But I'm not, with this, what I'm really wanting to say is that I'm not trying to be special or say that I'm special. I'm calling for everybody to take their lead in that kind of way.
You are special, Peter. We'd have to admit you are.
Well, thank you. But what I'm calling is for everybody to be special. That's really the calling. is to ask everybody to look at what you want to see in the world, which is not happening right now, and don't expect anybody else to be able to take the lead on it. Just start it, because nobody else is going to do it. If you're the only one that can see it, you've got to do it. And that's really the ultimate message around leadership, I think, and it has nothing to do with age. And of course,
I know.
Nothing to do with age, but it does have to do, the things we've researched a bit around the art of succession. And this is an art which the indigenous peoples of the world intuitively represent and still do so, and which has been sadly largely lost in the Western world with our industrial age, and needs to be recovered again, which is why we have it as such an important point in the source work. So succession processes come into line right now as being very, very important in this question of leadership. And there's too little knowledge on it right now. So I think I've said my piece, Nadia.
Peter, before we bring in Clarissa, I just, had this thought. I don't know if you ever watched The Life of Brian, where there's this wonderful scene where the prophet Brian stands in front of a group and yells, "You're all individuals." And then the choir comes back, "We are all individuals."
Yeah. Beautiful.
It's this conundrum that it's hard to solve for. Clarissa, what was present for you?
And it goes into what you've just been saying, Deborah talking about these 500 people singing together. And before you were mentioning this beautiful choir, but you're not a singer, you could still feel the power. And just, we don't need, as we started, we do not need to be perfect. We're insufficient, but we can still sing. And I remember having this experience talking about singing. I did a Swiss yodel class in Berlin by an Austrian woman, and we had a Christmas concert, and she said, "You know what, guys, it doesn't matter if you sing wrong, but just sing fully." And that gave me such a permission that she's like, "I heard you." And it was like a public event. I just want to encourage everybody to sing within, even though we cannot maybe do it perfectly, in a sense.
No, I love that, Clarissa. And actually, of course, the choir made all of us sing yesterday too. And it was a, 3,000 people room where everybody started singing. And it was beautiful. Yeah.
And then there's one more thing that I wanted to mention also within like the leadership and also the source. So in one of my trainings, the leadership teacher mentioned, like a leader is somebody bringing the best out in everyone. And this, I think, is often a challenge. It is, and also within, like thinking of source and being responsible, this thing of being responsible and wanting everybody to bring out the best. I think we haven't really gotten a lot of tools for that. I noticed that I swing into like an old school leadership mindset sometimes of needing to take charge instead of allowing like everybody to bring their fullness. So I feel like there is that little bit that it's a challenge that I think a lot of us have that are just getting into this kind of work. Yeah.
And Clarissa, that brings up the client that I was talking to before our session here, where I think part of that kind of leadership is really dropping deeply and with all the vulnerability into the space of not being good enough, right? And being willing and able to share that with the people we're leading. So to not feel we need to create this fake sense of separation where somehow, because I'm now the leader for whatever reason, I need to know stuff, but rather come with this grounded humility of most of the things I need to know, I don't know. And that is never going to change, right? As a human being.
Yeah. So is there another word? I mean, for me, leader is a hard word to, you know, shift my own belief that I put on. The leader is always the one sort of above and not, you know, like around in a sense. You know, you understand what I'm trying to say? I find it really difficult to change that understanding.
So this is very, very interesting, Clarissa, because I don't believe the leader necessarily needs to be at the front, can be in the middle, and can be at the back. And I remember being given the task to, in France, in a field, to look after a herd of sheep. And the sheep wanted to run out of the field. So I started running after them, and the faster I ran after them, the faster they ran.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realized what was happening. So I stopped. And the moment they stopped, I stopped, they stopped. And then I realized I was leading actually the sheep from behind. It was a great learning.
A herder, though, that's not a leader, that's a herder.
Well,
it is a leading position, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
So you, any more thoughts that come up for you?
Oh, plenty. I mean, I did some herding 2 years ago at the farm of my nephews. So I recognize a lot of what you said, Peter, and there is more to be said. Clarissa, what you said about giving people a second chance, actually, that comes from the Danish Kierkegaard already, I think, a century ago. Maybe not a century ago, in around, I think, between 45 and 50, he was quoted to say that. And talking about a different name, I know that I spoke for a group of chief financial officers not too long ago, and I said, actually, what you have to turn into is chief facilitating officers, because that is that's what your role is. Actually, you're supporting, and so I think we know what we need and what we want, and I'm trying to, apart from Deborah, thanking for saying that, working now on my own trauma with the loss of Vera, is how do we, talking about the choir, so this beautiful story of this group that starts to hum, but somebody has to start.
yeah.
And whether we call it a leader or whether we call it whatever, but so how do we enable, how do I enable the courage within people to say, I hear that I need to do that, and then just do it. And so we'll start humming, and it doesn't have to be the same person all the time, but to empower people to love themselves so much, or to recognize the voice within that makes that happen. And I said, I'm going to repeat myself, to me, Vera was one of those people that I thought would start doing, and she actually did. I mean, yeah. I was in 2 occasions where I was present, where she started to sing in the church. She was the one who started that, and still we are where we are. So lots of thoughts, Nadia, but it's thank you.
Thank you. Debbie, you.
Thank you for sharing these 2 stories of Vera that I didn't know. And it brings me in some way two points. Was one of the Indian tradition of Samdi, where a leader will decide at a certain point in time that he or she can make a bigger difference from above than they can from on earth, and decide to just meditate their way into a transition to the other side. And I just wish to believe that that's what Vera is doing for us now, and that we can call on her from here to the other side and have her be the leader that she is, was on earth and can be from there for us. And that brings me just, Clarissa, to a slight rewording of your definition of a leader that I was once given by Miles Kierson, and that is that a leader is someone who moment by moment creates the world we all want to belong to.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we put it that way, the leader is looking at the environment at all points in time. How can they create that environment, which may be the person that started the humming, but it's what's the world we all want to belong to, because they're tuned into the collective needs and they're tuned into what they can do to step up to those collective needs and their role. And anyway, I just thought I'd bring in those 2 points.
Thank you, beautiful. Listen, I'm gonna start removing our fixed videos here one by one, because I do want to hear from the rest of the group for a moment as we're getting to already sort of the close of the video. Jesus, is there no easier way to do this? One by one. Anyway, now I'm done. I'm just wondering sort of what is your takeaway from today? What are you going pregnant with? What's a thought that is in your heart, in your mind? And I'm going to call on a couple people. Kerst, what's present for you?
Things. The first is I was thinking about my definition of leadership all the time. And one thought that I came up with was that I found that I was most influential when I stopped doing anything, stopped thinking, and just became. So it was, to me, leadership is something like not leading, not being the leader anymore, but opening myself to something that's leading, and maybe even being aware that I'm not leading. And the other thing is, Peter, your words, the pain of inadequacy. Thank you very much for this, because I just came out of another session before this one, and we were 4 people talking about exactly that, and finding out that exactly that was what we were suffering through over the last days, weeks, or whatever. So thanks for giving that a word, a phrase.
Thank you, Kerst. Thank you so much. Monica, what about you? Can you find the unmute button? Yes.
I find it. Yeah, I feel the sadness. I feel the connections to Vera, to all of you, and the gratitude. And I want to share with you that you empower, or we empower people with our presence. And I always felt your presence when you were there for Vera. And this this gave a strength for myself. So just to be present is empowering people. So thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Yeah, and actually, Monica, I want to do a little checkout myself, because that resonated so deeply what you just said. That question that you asked also kept churning in me, because I had the same sense. For me, Vera was somebody that would have been the next generation of leaders, or she was the next generation of leader. And I think what we can do is, next to the presence, is when we have identified somebody where we feel this energy, and I would call it a source energy, actually, right? When we feel this energy, to ask them, what do you need, right? And to see if we can be of support in any shape or form. And sometimes they need things we don't have to give. But sometimes we do. And I think you in particular gave a lot to Vera, like Monica mentioned.
And Nadia, I would like to add something. What resonated as well is what Deborah shared around the trauma, how much we in our, or many people in our society are traumatized. And from my own experience, I know it's so difficult for many people to share their needs, to express their needs. It's just, so if we realize we can share something, yeah, it's important. And sometimes the other ones, they cannot ask. Yeah. Okay.
Right, I'm looking for a couple more. Jennifer, I'm wondering what's going on for you.
I didn't know Vera personally, but I was shocked when I read that in the newsletter, especially for someone who's been doing so much of the kind of work that she has done. It reminded me of a phase that I also had when I was very deep in the environmental subjects of like a kind of eco-grief, this feeling of being overwhelmed, of things just being too much and not able to grasp the changes that have to be made. And so it reminded me of that. And also so I can really relate to it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think many of us here in this space can relate to that. I've never heard eco-grief, by the way. It's a beautiful term, very fitting. Maybe one more, Ines. What about you?
I feel grief. Grief is present for me in my body, but something that I would say I've been sitting with ever since we started the call. And I think, as Peter, you mentioned it, the pain of inadequacy. I think that one's been ringing, as Kirsten has mentioned, in my heart. I wouldn't say in my ears ever since the beginning of the call. And as in our group in the beginning, Clarissa mentioned the freedom of also being inadequate, and almost that's okay. And the sentiment of like, of observing myself, of how much I've been in a doing as a way to run away from that sense of inadequacy versus allowing myself to be. So yeah, that's what I'm nursing at the moment.
Thank you, Ines. Peter, any last words from you before we part for today?
Just an expression of gratitude for the openness and depth of sharing in this session, including your last sharing, Ines. I love it. So beautiful. And that we have this opportunity, that you've created this opportunity, Nadia, to create this format and this structure where we can go to this level of depth together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my parting words are come back. You know, I feel, Peter, these Ask Me Anything sessions are more and more turning into the everything bagel, right? So the everything bagel has all flavors, and whatever is present is sort of that which needs to happen. we do have a next Ask Me Anything, which will actually be the 20th, believe it or not. It's an anniversary Ask Me Anything, and we just moved the date because originally it would have been October 1st, but both Peter and I are still in Japan. And even though Peter had the commitment in the past session to sit in some Japanese toilet at 2 a.m. in the morning, I decided I don't have it in me. I don't want to do an Ask Me Anything at 2 in the morning from a Japanese toilet. So therefore, we're moving it to October 17th. I've already created the new link, and that will be part of your email. And as always, let's just engage in our little goodbye ritual. If you could all unmute yourselves and connect to a field next to you, a person next to you, find some fingertips, tickle some fingertips. Have a beautiful evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Tschüss.
Bye, you guys. Take care.
Thank you so
Tschüss.
much.
Ciao.
Bye bye. Ciao, ciao, ciao.